The flashback pheasant tail because I put the wrong bead in, but that's okay. So a pheasant tail, though most associated with probably rivers and streams, is a really good indicator fly, particularly in the fall when they're feeding on small young of the year fry like fathead minnows or brook stickleback. They're often a brownish olive color with a little flash in their belly, and for some reason a gold bead pheasant tail, I tie them in a sort of hotspot version, works really well. So I've just put some hot orange tying thread. I'm going to cover the front half of the shank. Now, a lot of times when you tie beadhead nymphs with legs sticking out the sides, copper johns, those kind of things, your legs can get they start to splay out on you and get out of control. And the reason that is because when you're tightening up against the bead, the legs are actually sliding up under into the bead and getting all out of position. So one of the ways you can do it is just, I'm going to use, so this is uni stretch on a bobbin. So I'm just going to start that off and just tie it on just like tying thread. And the reason I put the thread on first is just to, it just helps stop it from potentially sliding around. So I'm just going to build that up. And then pound in some of these wraps right tight. They're actually disappearing in. And then once I'm happy with the underbody, tie it off and you're done. And you could do this for, you know, John Kent showed me this method. He uses this for chironomids as well. When you bigger chironomids, you want to build up a bit of taper, saves you a ton of tying thread. Right? So it really works well. So now we're just going to take our tying thread down into the bend slightly, find our pheasant tail. This is off a miniature pheasant. No, it's just I just cut it. Pygmy pheasants, yes. So I'm just going to isolate 8 or 10 fibers. I just stand the pheasant tail perpendicular to the stem, and that evens up the tips. And I'm a huge proponent of just get the stuff on the hook. So I just put the pheasant tail on top, a couple of wraps. The finished tail isn't going to be that long, but I've got 2 wraps on there, so that's not really going anywhere. And I just pull on it, support both ends, until I get the tail where I want. And by doing this, I don't have to make my first wraps my best wraps. So I just pull to length a little bit, secure that down, and I got a tail in it. And if you want, you can come back a little bit and tuck a wrap under to help hold it up. And then we'll put our ribbing in. Use some copper wire. Make sure you put it back on the spool. This is small UTC. I really like the UTC wires. I'm just going to put that up along the side, secure that. I'll deal with the length of the wire later. I'm just going to pull my pheasant tail over and then carry on and secure that wire all the way up the side of the hook. Help build up our foundation. And I'm going to come back with my tying thread, envision a thorax in there. So now I'm going to make this a little more bulletproof. So I'm going to put a little coating of brushable super glue, and I'm actually going to take the pheasant and I'm going to counterwind the pheasant, not the rib. So I'm coming this way, over the top towards me. Hold that up, tie that off. Couple fore and aft. That's tied off. And now I'm going to go with my ribbing sort of in the standard way. So my ribbing will stand out a little better. Actually, I'm not going to do that yet. I'm now going to come in and put my flashback. And you can flashback the wing case, or you can flashback the entire body. I tend to find sometimes that the flashback along the entire length works best. So what I'm going to do is put a length, and this is just the the Mirage Opal. I love this stuff. Great. So we're just going to tie that in place, enough to form, flashback the wing case. And I just lift that up and kind of wiggle it so it sits on top. And now I'm going to take half turn to position this right at the base of the tail, and then just come over the top and secure it in place with my wire. And as I go over, I come over the top, controlled but not tight, and then apply tension on the downstroke. That way, if I come over, there's a risk, especially early on, if I come over with too much tension too early, it's going to roll and follow that motion. So by coming over the top and then pulling on the downstroke, the pressure's coming straight down on the material. It goes right where you want it. And come up and then go on the other side, a couple of wraps, tie it off, pull and twist. And then you can just come in and I just nip, without nipping the tail, nip that little stub. And then that shellback's really in there, quite secure, very secure. And because if you counterwound the rib, if you think about it, when you come this way with ribbing material and then go that way with the tying thread, that's actually going to push the rib away and loosen it. But if you counterwound the pheasant over the super glue, that's reinforced it, and now the wire going, you know, the normal way we tie flies over the top away from us, and when you tie off that wire and now are applying thread tension to secure it down, that's only going to tighten the wire and twist it even tighter around the body. So things are going to be a little more durable for you. All right, so now we're just going to take our flashback material and wind back onto it. Now this part is where I always tended to struggle with pheasant tails, is trying to get consistent legs. I'm going to tie in a set of legs along each side, and I want them the same length all the time. And I was always taught, well, you tie in the wing case enough, and you got to factor in enough for the wing case to come over, and then leave a little bit extra left over because those are going to be forming your legs. And I never got the legs to be consistent. So if I take, again, another 8 fibers, stand them up, but this time I'm going to pre-measure my legs. So I want my legs, you know, maybe a little longer in this example, if I just, whatever I like in my pheasant tail. So I tied them in place on top of the shank. I can always shorten them a bit again. Come back on top, onto the body slightly, so I have a nice transition. And then we'll use, this is the UV2 peacock eyes. I like using peacock eyes if I can, nice and full. I only need one. I'm just going to tie this in by the tip. Come up, form my peacock curl thorax. Nice and bushy, scary bushy.
Isn't it?
It's all right. It's going to get wet. Tie that off. And now all I'm going to do, I'm going to tilt this towards me a little bit, but I'm going to part, if you will, the fibers. And you're probably looking at me going, what's he know about parting hair? But it's more of a latent imprint on me than... somebody got the joke. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that my thread is right up behind the bead, and then I'm just going to secure, if I can see properly here, the far side set of legs, and then come back up to the front of the bead, right up to the back of the bead, and then secure the near side legs. And if I've done them reasonably right, which I think I have, it's hard to see, they're both along the sides where I want them. And because I built up that thread underbody, you can see they didn't want to flare all over the place because they weren't getting sucked into the hole at the back of the bead. I built up the bulk with the uni-stretch, and I have one errant fiber here, so it's now a cripple. Yeah, it's going to spin. No.
Yeah. Never strike it when they count.
That's right. Well, if they can count, you know, some people get so wound up with their flies. You know, if fish could count, we wouldn't. Please explain why they don't see the big pointy thing underneath. And now we're just going to pull the wing case over the top. And normally, if you don't forget your resin, you would put resin over the top of this, but I forgot that. But you get the idea. And then just tie that off. And then I like to build up a little bit of a hot spot, if you will, by just taking the tying thread, spinning it to take any of the twist out so I get nice, flat, hopefully even wraps, and just build it, whoops, and then build up a little hot spot right behind the bead. Where are you? I'm making hand whip finish just to prove I can still do it. No, I got it. Oh, crap. And away you go. That's good. I slipped it off. Anyway, you get the gist. But again, this fly has worked really well in the fall months, but it also works when they're on zooplankton. You know, in the summer, you know, towards the late fall. They've been in deep, zooplankton is using an indication the fish are feeding in deep water. This twinkle of this fly just hanging under an indicator has worked, and it's worked all over. I've used it in California. They get on the zooplankton down there pretty good on Lake Davis, and you know, 12 feet down, hanging one of these under there works really well. So ignore the mess I made at the front of it by sliding the bobbin off. But that's, again, the moral of this is just how to make your legs consistent in length by tying them in first, pre-measure. And any nymph you can do this to. Any nymph you want, beadhead, otherwise. Put the legs in first, get them set to the leg, you know, leg length you want, secure that back, make the butts become your wing case, build your thorax, tie it off, and you're done. So that's one of them.